5:49. Suzette? Suzette, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I'm going to cut out shortly.
Okay, Christina?
I'm here.
Yes, I'm
Cheryl?
I'm here.
Mr. Montoya? Well, then I'm here, so we have a quorum. Christina, are you in person?
Christina Palos-Agathos.
Yes.
Is there anybody there in person?
Marion, I'm here. Christina's here. I'm here. In person, live.
Would you offer a prayer and pledge of allegiance, please?
Okay. I'll do the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America,
and to the republic for which it stands, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Carlson, are you present?
Marion, I'm doing the prayer. Okay, Father God, I come to you. Everyone is scattered here and there. Okay, Marion.
Okay. Phone doesn't, thank you, Christina. My phone doesn't show me anything on here. While I'm looking at the agenda, can you hear me now?
We can hear you, Mr. Wells. This is Steve Carlson. I'm here as well.
Okay. I apologize for this. Sharon, are there any comments? Let's see, we're supposed to have an agenda review first, it looks like.
Yes. So everyone look over the agenda. Marion?
President Wells, are you there?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay. I Priscilla Benali to our agenda regarding the recipients NMSBA. Thank you.
We can't do that tonight. We'll have to have that for the August meeting.
Board President Marion Wells?
Yes.
Do we have our board attorney on?
I did not contact, but my understanding is if it's not on this agenda, we have to move it to the next one. Is that right, Sharon?
The person that's gonna present that is here and has traveled from Gallup and is our board attorney on?
Is this a report only?
No, it's a presentation. Why wasn't she added to the agenda?
I sent in a request on, this is Vice President Haskell. I did send in a request. I believe it was on Friday.
I sent a notice that we need to move that to August.
Well, this is concerning a scholarship, so it needed to be done right away for both parties, the recipient and the New Mexico School Board Association. Let's get the board attorney on the phone.
Jared, can you call Pat and see if she's available?
Pat is not our board attorney, it's Jermaine,
No,
Miss-
Pat is a board attorney.
Mr. Wells.
Pat Ives is the board attorney. They're both, my understanding is they're both board attorneys.
No, if you want to go by paperwork documentation, it's Jermaine.
Well, I can't call her from here because I'm using my phone to do this. Somebody else will have to get in touch with her. Is somebody else calling?
Board member Aspis, would Ms. Benali be able to do a public comment in regards to the scholarship?
Did you hear a response to that, I can't hear.
Can we determine right now who's gonna run the meeting? Is it Marion, or are we gonna go with the original plan of Vice President Haskell?
Well, I wasn't going to, I was just going to listen in. But Vice President Haskell is not there.
I had deferred to Cheryl until I got there because
We're having a lot of audio. I'll take it, if you don't mind, President Wells.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Christina, I'm driving, so if you would take.
Okay, okay, we're gonna get on with the meeting. So have we approved the agenda?
but I would like to adjust my suggestion is to try.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and go, and I will be running the meeting until Ms. Haskell arrives, and then I'll turn it over to her. And in the meantime, we are approving the agenda with the, okay, yeah, we'll approve the agenda and do a roll call. Marion?
Here.
Our quorum. He did quorum already, right? He did?
Yes, I did.
Okay. All right, a motion to approve agenda.
Christina, Ms. Chappelle is on.
Yes, we're past that. Motion to approve the agenda.
I make a motion, we approve the agenda.
Second?
I second.
Is that Cheryl?
Yes.
Okay, roll call. Marion?
Yes.
Cheryl? Ms.
Yes.
George? Ms. Haskell?
I'm sorry, I lost connection. Can you tell me what we're voting on?
This is the roll call for approving the agenda.
Has the presentation been added to the agenda?
It's not added to it's in the comments, so we don't need to.
Okay, then I approve the agenda.
Okay, Mr. Montoya, we're doing roll call for approving the agenda.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yes. And I would like to say as well too, as long as public comments is on there, it can be done. As long as we're giving deference to the individual that showed up and came out of their way to present.
Okay. Okay. Yes, have it. So we're moving on to number 2, comments from the audience. So we have Danielle Jim.
Yat Eshea Danielle Jimian Shia Nanisht Eja Ninshle Ozeta Chini Bashichin Kintluchini Dashache Twadachini Dashanale Yat Good evening, board members, superintendent, and guests, and on those online. I just wanted to make 2 comments this evening. The first one is in regards to positions that are current and open for instructional and social emotional learning administrators of SEL, which some consider as an assistant principal or a dean of students. The job description consists of many duties that a principal does. My question is, why are so many of these positions opened, knowing we are short on certified staff and teachers, and especially the need for educational assistants? Why are more positions from the top down created? This can be viewed as an increased micromanagement system from the top down. These positions don't interact on a daily basis with students. Where does this leave principals' job descriptions? Yes, there are many principals who do their job diligently, but there are those who also abuse their positions. Quote, my contract time ends at 3:30. My second comment for the evening is a positive note. I am proposing for 2 facilities of CCSD to be named after 2 Native American women of education. First, Shiprock High School's auxiliary gymnasium be named after Miss Mamie Jim, who was a physical education teacher for many years at CCSD. Miss Mamie Jim passed away earlier this year. She was not only recognized as a physical education teacher, but also as a basketball coach for both the Shiprock Lady Chieftain and Navajo Prep Lady Eagle programs. Second, Mesa Elementary School Library to be named after Miss Darlene Chase, who currently serves as the school librarian. Darlene has served and continues to serve over 40 years of educational service for CCSD. It would be an honor to have both facilities named after 2 honorable Native American educators who serve and served our stakeholders of CCSD. Thank you.
Our second person is Brian McCollum.
Good evening. Good evening, superintendent, board members, audience members, both here and online. When the contract was not extended for the former superintendent, Mr. Benavides, there were 4 board members who voted not to extend the contract. During that discussion, all 4 of the members that voted in such manner said that they were listening to the voices of their constituents. The 1 member of the board who did not support the action said that it was his opinion that the contract should be extended. This creates the impression that he regards his opinion as superior to those of the other board members and to the constituents of CCSD at large. This is especially true since he neglected to mention anything about his constituents' feelings in the matter, but only regarded his own opinion. In addition, this same board member has stated on several occasions that he believes that the board should be run as a business. School boards are a public trust that we use as an investment to improve the lives and education of our students. It is not a for-profit enterprise, and this stance by the board member makes it clear that he does not have a clear understanding of what a school board should be or what its purpose is. By his continued actions and statements, he makes it impossible for many people who are part of the CCSD stakeholder community to feel that he creates an environment where people are respected and trust what the board does because he places himself above the people. In addition, the legal counsel, Jermaine Chappelle, has quite often felt that she must support his actions in ways that I feel also make the community feel that they are not respected or that their voices are heard by the public. Lastly, during the last 2 years, there have been great financial strains in the district, and yet at Mesa Elementary School, there was a remodel done of the principal's office. I would like to know if at some point the board would address why it felt that that investment needed to be made at this time, and if there is any member of the staff or administration at Mesa Elementary School that has either a family or business relationship with the company that created the remodel at that school. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, our third presenter is Priscilla Benali.
Yat e do a chehe yn chyddeisnil. She ya Priscilla Benali in she do halton shlon a shitni bashastin. Kia ani da she do bio dene da shanella. Good evening, Superintendent, board members.
I know I didn't do you justice, but you might go ahead and say who you represent,
Okay.
why, and then all your credentials.
Okay, sister, thank you. And to board members that are on online and the community members, and then also the ones that are here in person, thank you. I come to you as a board member with several hats that I wear. As my sister Christina said, Kepeko, I usually use the relationship plan that we have instilled in the NEC culture. So I always address Christina and Suzette Cheryl as my sisters. And, you know, we exchanged our plans and so I appreciate adding me to the public comment. I feel this is very important to provide this information to you all. I'm on the board of New Mexico School Board Association. I sit as the Region 1 president. Ms. Stephanie Vicente is the vice president from Zuni, and Christina Aspis is our secretary from here. And then Ms. Montoya is on the resolution committee also for the New Mexico School Board Association. So you are very well represented at the state level. We always get valuable input, especially from the northern agencies dealing with education. I also want to say thank you to the school districts from Zuni, Gallup, CCSD, Bloomfield, Kirtland, Aztec, and Dulce who have elected us into these positions. It's an honor that 3 indigenous women represent the board, our Region 1, as officers, which is very unlikely at times with the majority of non-natives that usually fill these positions. So give yourselves a round of applause that you do have great representation. I also sit on the Gallup-McKinley County Board of Education. I'm serving my sixth year, my second term. I've been there for continuing to advocate for our children. The main job is I work at a community center as executive director, helping my youth with suicidal ideations and a safe place for their community. So I want to also present this award. This NSBA has announced the award of their 2022 scholarship to 24 outstanding high school graduating seniors at this past year's law conference. Each student will receive a $1,200 scholarship to further their education. Nominations were received from New Mexico Board of Education, and selections were based on criteria including demonstrated leadership, academic performance, community involvement, and extracurricular activities. The 22 Scholarship Award recipient for your region, CCSD, is Caden Fuller of Farmington High School. I did provide superintendent with the envelope that had the certificate, a letter from NSBA, and then also the check that had the $1,200 scholarship in there. I do not know if they are present this evening. Are they? Okay. If you could forward that envelope to the gentleman that received this award, I would greatly appreciate that. And again, I appreciate the nomination from your school district. We're always looking for students that are that represent your area. I also want to inform your board that I do sit on the National Johnson O'Malley Board of Directors, and we have two more scholarships that I would like to pass on to Ms. Aspis as she's in person here. There's a Chief Earl Old Person Scholarship. We're looking for two individuals at $1,000 each. And then we also have the Steve Pruitt's Memorial Scholarship. Again, two individuals for $1,000 each again. These are due September 1st. They're also on our website. I would like to invite the board and superintendent and staff to our conference, which will be happening in September. We have this information, which is call for workshop presenters. If you have staff or yourselves that would like to report on any of the following topics, there's a list of topics that you're more than welcome to fill out this form and also provide to an email to me so I can forward it on. One of the main reasons I came today too is we need Exceptional Program of the Year for Johnson O'Malley. If you have your different schools and you have an outstanding Johnson O'Malley program that you feel deserves this award, please submit that program to me. And then we also have a Teacher of the Year award. And I know that you guys have those individuals in your school. So I would like to present these documents to Ms. Haskey, and I will be looking for a response in email if you are interested and if you do have a program that you guys would like to recognize. So I appreciate you all and thank you again, and continue to do the good work that you guys are doing. And yeah.
Okay, we're on to item 3 on reports. Memorandum of Agreement between Division of Aging and Long-Term Care Support, adult, I don't know how you say it, Navajo Foster Grandparent Program, and Central Consolidated School District by Louise Washburn. Do we have Louise on?
Yes. Good evening. My name is Louise Washburn. Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Do. Yes, we hear you.
Okay. My name is Louise Washburn, and I work with the Navajo Foster Grandparent Program. And we, for many years, have worked with Central Consolidated Schools. And these are the foster grandparents. They volunteer in the classroom 4 hours a day, 5 days a week. And we would like to come back into the school district to help the kids do their one-to-one teaching with the students that need that extra attention. And we work, the volunteers will work with the teacher, where the teacher will be the one to identify which of the child will need that one-to-one, so they can either catch up or just do a lot of encouraging and monitoring the student as they catch back up with the group. And for the last years, we've been having 8 elementary schools in the school districts that have been working with the foster grandparent program. And we just work with the principal, and the principal will identify a volunteer supervisor that would be one of the teacher that has a grandparent assigned in the class. And all they would be doing is just doing their timesheet, and we give them a stipend of $2.50 an hour. And this year we're supposed to be going up to $3 an hour. So the grandparents are wanting to come back into the schools, and I wanted to present this MOA to you to see if the school board would be able to approve our MOA with the schools. And we know that the pandemic has come in, and we've been teaching our grandparents about the pandemic. And also, if they go back into the schools, we're recommending that they wear their mask and do their distance. And I talked to the principal about it before, and that's why I'm coming to you for your approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Washburn. So, any questions, board members?
I don't have any questions, but I do have a comment.
Go ahead.
I think that's a really good program. I think that it really does fall in line with the teachings of our culture of the Net. As the Net people, we gain a lot of teaching from our elders, and I think this is what is would be a really good program to support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, board members?
I would comment.
Go ahead.
I would concur with Ms. Haskey. I think it's good to have grandparents in the classroom with especially the younger children, to read to them and to help mentor them. I think that's a good association. I did not know that program had been curtailed. I assume it was because of COVID.
Yeah.
And yes, I would like to see it come back.
I have a question, Ms.
Go ahead.
Asmus.
Go ahead.
Superintendent?
Yes, sir.
In respect to the foster grandparents, is that something in conjunction with the other schools, even through Kirtland, if that could be reinstated as well?
Absolutely.
All right. I just think it's really good for those kids to see that and interact with them as well, all across the board. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
I have a question, Ms. Washburn. This is Mrs. Aspis. So I know this program was before, and are there non-native grandparents as well?
It's open to them, but like in the Kirtland area and the Newcomb area, we were recruiting one, but I think it was the distance. They didn't really live close to the school. So instead of coming to foster grandparents, they went to what they call RSVP. But this program is open to anybody that's 55 years of age and over. So if we have a non-native that came in, we take their application, do their background check, and they're more than welcome to get on the program. So for now, we just have the native, but we did work with the Ute tribe.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you. And any other questions, comments, board?
I just really appreciate the reconsideration to reincorporate the program back into the schools.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess we'll go on to item B, the Native Vision Program. Thank you, Ms. Washburn, for your presentation.
Yeah, thank you for your time.
So item B, Native Vision Program by Sharday Payochi.
Hello. That's eight, everybody. Thank you, honorable members of the board. My name is Sharday Payochi. I am from across the river from you all. I'm originally from Upper Fruitland. I work with the Johns Hopkins Center for American Indian Health program, based in Shiprock, New Mexico, and I manage a variety of behavioral health programs. One of them being Native Vision, which I'm going to talk about today. And the other is the Honoring Life program, which is a suicide prevention program as well. So I do have a PowerPoint. I know. Let's see. Miss Ray was going to display it. Let me see. Or I can just share my screen too. We'll go ahead and just do that. So the Native Vision program as well. It's a culturally based healthy lifestyle program for Native American youth and communities. It consists of two components. So we do host our Native Vision annual 3-day sports camps. And we also try to do 2 sports camps throughout the year. Sometimes we do partner with different teams or schools. So we're open to that. And that can consist of soccer camps, volleyball camps, football, basketball, even lacrosse. We do have that equipment as well if that's asked for. And then we have our year-round school-based programming and regional camps to extend the annual camp teachings throughout the year. So our mission is to empower Native youth to realize their full physical, mental, emotional, social, spiritual potential through promotion of physical fitness, healthy nutrition, and positive life skills. Our year-round program, our comprehensive school-based program, consists of a structured curriculum for youth. It's 24 lessons, 12 lessons each semester. So 12 lessons will be hosted in the fall, and then 12 lessons will be hosted in the spring. And then those are usually integrated into the PE or health classes. And we do host our regional camps and community-based wellness events. So we do a lot of outreach for that. And our program goals through in-school, after-school programming and community-based events is to improve youth physical fitness, their physical health, improving healthy food choices, and increase the youth sense of connectedness to culture, community, and nature, as well as increase youth self-efficacy and self-esteem about one's future, and also to improve youth academic progress. So as you see here, we did conduct surveys during the school year. Elementary youth survey data indicated an increase in youth knowledge about healthy living, a decrease in sugary beverage consumption, an increase in water consumption, and an increase in physical activity. And then feedback data showed that the program is very well received, and is providing engaging, relevant education on healthy living for Native American youth. And this is kind of those results to kind of see what those findings were. And so what we're doing is we're asking to come back this year. I know we took a break due to COVID, and then we implemented the Safe School program into Central Consolidated. And so this year we're wanting to reintegrate the Native Vision program back into Central Consolidated. So we're asking for that. And then if possible, do you have any recommendations for the upcoming school year as to which schools to be in?
So, Ms. Payochi, recommendations. Did you? I'm totally ignorant on this.
No, that's fine. So usually when we come to the school board, we ask if there are any schools that they would recommend for us to go into. The last two times we presented to you, you recommended Newcomb schools. And so we were implementing the program there in the middle school and high school. And so we are asking this year if you have any, suggested schools to go into.
So my question is, before, did you just have one school that you
No,
went
we have a few. So like we've done we did Kirtland Middle School, Kirtland High School, Kirtland Elementary before. And then when we were requested to be moved to Newcomb, and we were recommended to stay there for the 2 times. And in the past, we have done after school programs at Kirtland Middle School. We've done after school programs in TBA. I mean, we're able to go into any schools that you might recommend.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. And I do have a comment, and a recommendation that
Yes, ma'am.
mainly for Nashchiri and Newcomb area and Oho.
Okay.
But that's not to leave out Shiprock either. I especially with COVID, a lot of, just the last two presentations made, I didn't know we had stopped those, and it's good to see it coming back, but that would be my recommendation, and mainly because of the they're not in areas where they're nearby gyms or other facilities like that.
Yeah, definitely. We can take that into consideration and then reach out to those schools and see who might be interested in that. So definitely we'll reach out to those schools and see if they're interested. Thank you.
Okay, board members, do you have any comments, questions?
I'm good. Sounds good to me.
Okay. And then also to talk about this program is that even though it says program for Native American youth and communities, it can be offered anywhere. I mean, we've done it at Kirtland High School, middle school, elementary, to not just, to non-Native students as well. And it was well received. Everybody had fun and they learned a lot. So it's adaptable to a diverse population.
Miss Piauchi, again, just as a prior presentation, I appreciate you guys reopening the programs because they are very beneficial to our
Yeah.
students. So thank you.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. There's a lot of different, the curriculum has a lot of different activities that we do. So talking about health and nutrition, of course, like eating different foods, fruits and vegetables. We talk about your mental health, how you can take a break from, when there's a high energy situation, taking a break, kind of grounding yourself in ways that you can do that. And then coming back and having a healthy conversation as well. So there's a lot of those different activities. And we see now, and I'll talk about this next program, that there's a need for mental health right now. So we know that that's a concern. And so we're hoping that this program will kind of touch on that, as well as the next program that I'm going to also talk about next.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
In the schools that you've mentioned that you were provided services to, what was the attendance, the average, I guess, participation number of students?
It just kind of depends. Sometimes, we have one team doing 2 different programs. So we usually do at least, it just kind of depends. We can do 2 or 3 classes in, I think it was Newcomb High School. I think we did 4. And then the other Newcomb Middle School, I think we did 2. And so it's just how many other kids are in that program. So it could be up to 120 to 150 students a year.
And what is the process for the students to sign up for your program?
What we do is we implement within the PE and health classes. And so we do have a parent permission form that we have them complete. And that's it for right now. We usually do surveys, but we decided not to do it this year. It's more of a service program rather than collecting the data and kind of presenting that data back, the increase and decrease and everything. So we're not going to be doing the surveys this year. So we're not doing any consent or assents at all. So what we're doing is just the parental consent to elect to be in this program. And if a student doesn't elect to be in this program, there's other activities that the PE teacher has them do.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So Ms. Piauchi, you were talking about food. Was that from us? I believe I remember a presentation years back where they were talking about the rainbow or the color of the food or something like that.
Yes, tasting the rainbow.
Yeah,
Yes.
something. Yeah,
Yeah.
And
so it was interesting. I mean, that was one of the really, enlightening things that came from that. It was some students never had a plum. Some students never had a black grape or a purple grape, or even know what a rambutan is, or a jicama. And so none of those were known. And so bringing those different colors in and having them taste different fruits and vegetables, they were like, oh, I didn't even know this was out there, And then that kind of, we talked about the benefits of why we eat, what are the vitamin benefits, the health benefits of eating different fruits and vegetables of different colors. And so our students really like that one. We do bring snacks. So we do bring snacks with snacks and water every time we come out. Sometimes we bring infused water, which they really like, or we'll bring, extra strawberries or, whatever they want to make infused water with. We usually provide water bottles for them. So they get that too, and to help increase that. And then just like healthy snacks, different types of snacks that we, like yogurt bark, we'll sometimes make that. And they get to kind of experiment with different snack ideas that are healthy.
So I remember asking this question and of where spam fits on that rainbow.
Oh. We were talking about fruits and vegetables, but we didn't talk about meat. So that's something we can definitely look into, like the benefits of each meat. But spam and corned beef are kind of introduced as well.
Okay, any more comments, questions from the board?
I don't have any additional questions.
Okay, we'll continue on. And thank you, Ms. Piochi.
Oh yeah, I still have the second program. Just giving you an update of this one too.
Okay.
And then this is the Honoring Life program. This is a youth suicide prevention program. What it is, it aims to grow and support tribal specific surveillance, linked case management, and brief interventions to reduce suicide risk and promote resilience among Native youth ages 10 through 24. We say 10 through 24, that's what the grant entails, but it's really 24 and under. We've had, I think my youngest was 4 years old that I followed up with. It consists of 3 components: so early identification of at-risk youth through active surveillance systems, screening through the ER log. They have a suicide behavior log that we look into, and various referral programs through Northern Navajo Medical Center. We do have an online referral program that we utilize for Central Consolidated. And then we do have case management and monitoring by case managers to assess imminent risk, provide support, and promote linkages to care. And then what we're working on right now is adapting brief culturally formed interventions to reduce risk and promote connections to care. So we have adapted one so far, and we're getting that reviewed. So we're just kind of going through some of the illustrations and everything, and we're able to offer that. We're shooting for late fall to start piloting that intervention. And so how this looks is our case managers receive referrals on suicidal youth from Northern Navajo Medical Center, Central Consolidated School District, parent and self-referrals, and also with Navajo. And we'll attempt to follow up directly with youth to conduct a follow-up assessment to gather more information about the incident. We do assess risk through the ASQ assessment. And then we try to connect them and their families to community resources. And if requested, so sometimes we ask individuals if they're interested in mental behavioral health care, or if they want to go the traditional route, we'll try and set them up with a traditional practitioner or religious entity. If they're not interested in any of that, then we ask them if they want us to check in on them. So what that looks like is we can either do it at school, we can do it at home, we can also, it's just kind of wherever they want. We've done it in Bash's parking lot, just kind of meeting them wherever they want, or Walmart parking lot too, and just kind of just checking in on them, seeing how they're doing. If they also are able to text us as well. We do have a text message system that's set up, and they're able to text us anytime. So we're used to getting texts at like 3:00 in the morning when somebody's struggling, and we're able to text them and talk with them as well. And then we are working on expanding our referrals to other community agencies. We are looking into BIE schools. We just had a meeting last week with Bureau of Indian Education, and so we will be approaching Bureau of Indian Education schools more so north of Shiprock, so on the Arizona side. And so that's some of the schools that we're going to be approaching, as well as Red Mesa School District. So we did reach out to them. The superintendent is reviewing the program as well. So those are some other ones that we're looking into. And then this is just kind of the flow chart of what happened. So a referral is submitted online through the emergency department or self-referral. We attempt contact. We try to attempt 6 times. So that be through a phone, text message, or home attempts, and school attempts as well. So that's what we try to do. We do try to get a parental consent form filled out prior to contact, but it is an emergency case. So we are able to go into schools if they are 16 and over, they can consent to their own mental health care if they're, I think it was over 14, sorry. If they're under 14, we can see them initially, do the first initial assessment with them. And then if, if it's to exceed care of 2 weeks or longer, then we do have to get parental consent. So that's when we need to, if they want wellness checks, then we need to get a parental consent form filled out for them. And so what happens is we do fill out the risk screenings. We do the case management form, ask a little bit about the event demographics, any substance use, as well as any other past behaviors that have happened, and past suicidal behaviors as well. And then we do the ASQ risk assessment to see where they're at. And if they do score high on that in school, then we do follow the school's procedures on how to address that situation. So we let the counselor know, and then we go ahead and follow their, I guess, course of care as well. And if, again, if the youth agrees to follow-ups, we do follow-ups however often they would like. So it can be weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, depending on their needs or their current risk. So if they're what we consider high risk, then we try to encourage doing weekly. Some people have even done daily. So, and that's okay that we can do that too. And then eventually, it's not something that, once you kind of resolve some of those issues or get them connected to healthcare, they seem to decrease in the frequency of their thoughts, or they feel like they're okay and they're supported. Then we go ahead and we make that agreement that follow-ups are no longer needed and that they're doing okay where they're at. But they always have access to us, so they know that they can always, text or call our phones too as well. And that has happened before. And then how you can submit referrals. So Central Consolidated does go through this route. It is FERPA, HIPAA, all covered through that. You would submit a referral. You go on honoringlife.org, submit a referral. This is what it looks like. Submit a referral. This is where you're going to click and the form will pull up, as well as downloading a parental consent form. Right now, we are trying to get an electronic parental consent form that you can fill out online and it gets sent straight to us. So that's what we're working on. We're hoping to have that done before the start of school, so parents are able to actually fill it out online. And then these are kind of our statistics right now. So we have had 622 intakes, attempts, ideation bins, self-injury, and other unknown. So other unknown can be, which we receive a lot of this from Central Consolidated, is it could just be a behavioral health concern. There may be a concern of depression or anxiety, and they're not sure if, suicide behavior is part of that. And so that's where we come in and we kind of check in on them and see how they're doing. If it's just that, if it's just a behavior, then, and there's no thoughts of suicide or any type of, any self-harm going on, then we don't do the ASQ risk assessment unless we feel like it's needed. But in that case, we don't do it, but we do ask them. And again, the male, female, so there are primarily more females that are going through this program. And the age group that we see the highest is 15 through 19. And then, of course, 15 and under is the second. And risk screens completed, 235, attempting, and then cases closed due to 6+ attempts to contact. But this now, the cases closed due to 6+ attempted contacts is going to change, because when we looked at the New Mexico law, we saw that we are able to contact those that are 14 and under without parental consent, initially because it is an emergent situation. But if it does exceed 2 weeks, that's when we can, that's when we have to get the parental consent form filled out. So that's something that was a game changer. So going into this school year, that's going to improve. We're able to contact individuals at schools. And then risk screens declined is 77. So if they do decline to not talk to us, that's fine. We just let them know that, if we do receive another referral on you, we are going to come back out and check on you. And we let them and their parents know. Currently following up, so we've done 479 total risk screens completed. Out of those, we completed 144, but they declined follow-ups. We closed 295, so we were following those individuals, but we ended up closing them out. due to them being okay, and then currently following up with 40. And then these are kind of the referrals by quarter. So last year, October through December, 31, January through March this year, 39, increased to 48 April through June. And then right now, just for the month of July, we barely have 8, but that's expected to increase as well. So we're expecting to increase right before once this school starts again. So again, there is a kind of a jump April through June, just because a lot of Central Consolidated does send a lot of referrals kind of at the end of the school year to make sure that they're followed throughout the summer. So that's why that you see that increase there. And then other suicide awareness activities, we do have our staff are trained in ASSIST and Safe Talk, so we facilitate that. ASSIST is the participatory 2-day workshop, and it's designed for members of all caregiving groups, family, friends, and any community members who may be the first to talk with youth who is at risk. They learn to identify persons with thoughts of suicide, seek a shared understanding of reasons for dying and living, developing a safety plan based on a review of risk, and then be prepared to do follow-up and be involved in a safer suicide-safer community network. So this one is more intense, yes. So if you are active, we do highly suggest this if for teachers or providers, if they're going to be coming up with or if they're going to be serving youth who are going to, this is going to come up, if suicide or self-harm is an issue, they're better skilled to ask, because it's really hard to ask, especially in Native culture. We're not supposed to ask, right? And so trying to destigmatize that and say, well, if we're not able to ask, we're not able to help either. So just finding ways that we can say that and ask about that. And then Safe Talk is something that is new. I was just trained in this a few months ago. So this is a half-day training. It's a 4-hour training, super brief. It's really great though. I really like how this is presented. It's more of a community presentation. So I really want to start using this in communities. Both of these programs are essentially free, depending on how far we have to travel, or if there needs to be a facility, and that type of aspect as well. So we try to work with individuals and agencies. So primarily, it usually is free as far as us providing the service, but there are other costs such as facility, lunch, all snacks, and all of that aspect as well. And then we have been doing in-services. So we've been doing suicide prevention activities in the community. So we've done some in Dulce as well as Red Valley within the last month. And so we just kind of talk with youth. We do an experiential education way, just talking about signs of suicide, what are some healthy ways of coping and moving in that direction as well. So yeah, that's my presentation. I'm not sure if anybody has any questions or concerns.
Well, I did have some questions, but then you pretty much covered that when you gave data from and I was wondering if it dropped off or your services dropped off during COVID, but it doesn't look that way. And I think I would really like to hear the questions from Miss George. I mean, it seems like this is right up her alley, and to see what she would be asking, and but I like the idea of really doing what we can for mental health, because that's nobody likes to talk about it, but I think from all indications that it's on the rise, and personally, I've had friends where this situation has come about in their family, and from a young person, and they should have a lot of hope and in a future, but then it just made me realize, what about our other kids you know, how are they coping? How are they dealing? And then traditionally, we've seen a lot and heard a lot of death, and we still have not tried to recover or started healing in that way. Our ceremonies are still cut off, and but I guess I think it's great what you're doing, and if we can really make this successful with the school district and for our students, and it'd be that much more great. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. And to answer your question, we did see so our team transitioned into COVID response. So literally my team went from a team of 3 to 13. And we were literally trained 2 hours. We were literally certified in swabbing for COVID 2 hours before that huge, the big event, the swabbing, the biggest event on the Navajo Nation in state of New Mexico. We literally were trained 2 hours before, certified in it, and then we went out and did it. So my team jumped right into COVID response. But my case managers were doing both. So they were both doing COVID response, and they were also trying to do follow-ups remotely. We couldn't do home visits, but we were able to do remote. So we really transitioned to video, phone, text, all of that as well. But we did see a decrease just because there was not as many people utilizing the ER just because of the fear of getting COVID, right? And everything, it was discouraged. So we did see a decrease in that. But also with the individuals that we were following up on, there was a high rise in anxiety and depression just because they were now at home, and all of the in unhealthy homes, that's hard. A lot of things that they were coming up against was difficult, and then having the severity of what they were experiencing went up from the people that we were following up with. So I'm not sure who we missed during that time, just because it really is hard when students are at home. So what we're also hoping to do is increase this awareness that this program is able to be utilized by anyone in Central Consolidated. I think there is a misconception that just the school social workers are able to send us referrals, but it's really anybody, any teacher, anybody within CCSD. It doesn't matter who you are, what you are, that you're able to send a referral to us through that online system. It's super brief, easy, and we receive it instantaneous. So as soon as you send it, we get a notification right away.
I have a comment.
Okay, go ahead.
I think this is a wonderful program, and I also took, as a former school social worker, I did the assist training with my staff, and it was great. I think the 2-day training, is she's still on there? I don't know if she's on there. Okay, I was like, okay. I think the 2-day training, I think it really gives you the tools to be able to ask those tough questions, to be able to gather the right phrases and approach the topics in the right way. I mean, even just to approach the topic, broach it with the people. I think that's daunting in itself, and by taking the assist program, I think that it really helps everybody. I think not just people in working in mental health, but I think across the board, if you have people at risk or you work with students, I think this is a wonderful program to take, and I would love to take the Safe Talk, because you as a parent or as an aunt or any role that you play, I think you just never know, because suicide does not discriminate. It doesn't care how much money you make, doesn't care what your ethnicity is, doesn't care if you come from a one parent or two parent family, it does not discriminate. So I think it is, I think it's really good to equip our staff with these type of trainings, regardless of what your role is. I think it's really good. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And we did approach, I can't remember who it was, but I think it was Suzanne Ornelas, to see if we're able to provide assist for CCSD. But I think San Juan County is required to do signs of suicide. And so that was kind of what you all were trained in. And so they wanted it, I guess, I don't remember what it was, but I think there was a concern of finding time for teachers to attend assist when you guys are required to do signs of suicide, which signs of suicide is mainly more of a mentorship intervention kind of. With students, it's more student based, whereas assist is kind of everybody, which is like family, friends, community members, or anybody who's going to come up against this. So if you're working with students, I would really recommend assist, because it really does, what she's talked about, it does guide you in that whole journey that you do, recognizing invitations or signs, how to ask the question, and actually doing role plays to experience. And it's so weird, we do role plays and you get to have that experience of being that participant who is having thoughts of ideation, and actually experiencing that relief of somebody asking it. And that's what a lot of our participants, they want you to ask. And when somebody does ask, there's a relief that happens for them. And it's so weird through the assist training, you get to actually experience and feel that, even though you're in a role play and you yourself don't have thoughts, but you get to experience that relief of that being asked. So I would definitely recommend assist if that's something you want to do. We're happy to provide that for anybody. With the school district, if you have a facility, we're happy to provide, the services, or even Safe Talk. Safe Talk is a little more mild. So that's why I recommend it as a community one, especially, with Indigenous communities, just because it is really hard for us to talk about death or suicide, right? And stuff. So that's kind of a good transition, a good starter. And then assist is more the more in-depth one.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Payochi. Any board members with any comments, questions for Ms. Payochi?
I have a comment, Christina.
Go ahead, Cheryl.
So, Ms. Payochi, thank you for your presentation. And I totally agree with these two programs. It's highly needed. And I know that before in the past, there was concern about, 15-year-olds in high school helping assist with their friends, or if they have gotten word of somebody, thinking of suicide or having ideation, they thought it wasn't good for the kids to get involved. But the students already know who's going through what, who's thinking what, and they already know what's going on with the student population who's having issues. And so I really agree with the program. I think it's great, and especially training our staff. Um, I think the hardest part would be finding time, professional development wise, to train. You know, but it's doable. And Mr. Carlson, if you could, uh, really emphasize the scheduling of these programs, it would really be, like Ms. Haskey said. I agree with Ms. Haskey, President or Vice President Haskey's comments. It is really a great program, and I believe that our community and our students are, that would just give them more resilience and more awareness, and I just think it's great. And so thank you for the presentation.
Thank you. And we do have two upcoming assist trainings. So one is August 30th through the 31st, and then September 27th and 28th. So if you're interested in attending those, please reach out to me. I'll put my email in the chat. So if you're interested in attending those, please reach out. And then Safe Talk, we're planning for October, but we will, we're still waiting on the dates for that. Thank you.
Okay. Any more comments, questions from the board? Mr. Wells?
I'm good. It sounds
Okay.
like a good program to me.
Mr. Montoya?
I don't have any.
And I have one question. Is there any recommendations on how we can make this known more so to the Central Consolidated School District, not just the social workers or the counselors, but to everybody?
Mr. Carlson, would we be able to put the information on our website and include it in our newsletter?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Mr. Noble's shaking his head yes. Thank you, Jared.
Thanks, Jared. Thank you.
Okay, I believe we are, there's no more comments, questions, and so we'll continue on. Thank you, Ms. Payochi, for your presentation. So we'll move on to, before we move on, I'm gonna turn things over to Vice President Haskey, and she will continue with the meeting.
I apologize for my tardiness. We will move on to letter C, request for approval of gift donations for Newcomb High School for scholarship by Julia Curley. Are you on the line, Miss Curley? Oh, oh, right there. Guyla, sorry.
Just wanted to introduce who she was so that she could talk about her foundation first, and then I can talk more in specifics about what we decided as a leadership team that could be a scholarship at our school through her foundation. So Christy is actually online through Zoom, so she should unmute and then she can introduce herself and then talk about her foundation real quick.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, board members, for allowing me to speak to you this evening. And thank you also for all of your hard work as educators, particularly over these last few years with all the challenges related to COVID, et cetera. And, you know, I was once an educator myself at the university level, and so I know to some extent what you're going through. And I also wanted to thank Ms. Payochi for her very poignant presentation. And I think mine is probably a pretty good follow-up. My name is Christina Cones, and I am the CEO of the Kalos Agathos Foundation. Through our predecessor organization, the Kalos Kagathos Foundation, we've been promoting mind and body health in young people since 1968. The core philosophy of our foundation is based on two ancient Greek principles, kalos and agathos, the beautiful and the good. The underlying idea is that a person is most beautiful and good when she or he has respect for other people and for the natural world around us. To that end, we have supported numerous programs and events help young people both more beautiful and good, not only here in the US, but abroad, and in fact on every continent except Antarctica. Founding director Bruce Hopping, who died 4 years ago at age 96, tried for years to persuade the city of Laguna Beach, California, to install a sculpture honoring the original Tongva or Gabrielino indigenous inhabitants of the Southern California coast. Unfortunately, the city never agreed to his proposal. When Mr. Hopping died, he encouraged me to use the foundation to help promote Native American causes, to which he was always sympathetic and supportive. At first, I attempted to establish a scholarship honoring the World War II Navajo code talkers, whom Mr. Hopping frequently used to praise. This never materialized, but afterwards, while hoping to help young Native American children who at disproportionately high rates, I read an interview with Guyla Curley. Ms. Curley eloquently explained the many challenges facing Navajo high schoolers, not all of them related to COVID. I was moved by her account and decided to contact her directly. I told Ms. Curley that we were a small foundation and that we wanted to help the students by establishing a scholarship, but basically I left the specifics to her. After collaborating with her peers, Guyla returned with the proposal to establish, and please forgive me for butchering your language, the Tohanada Prize, named after the concept of the rising wave. This award is to be conferred upon 2 or 3 students annually who have had to rise up and overcome significant obstacles in their own path to self-development, including but not limited to COVID. The award is based on criteria including Navajo cultural studies, extracurricular activities, community involvement, and academic success. The application consists of a 500-word essay, an interview, and a teacher recommendation letter. I think Mr. Hopping would have liked this prize, both because we are sincerely trying to help young children in need who face specific challenges most kids never understand, and also because we are paying tribute to Navajo culture, which, obviously not an expert, helps instill in young people a fundamental sense of respect for oneself, one's community, and for the natural world around us with all of its living creatures. Thank you. And so I think Guyla can provide more specifics on the scholarship if you have any additional questions, and I'd be happy to direct you to our website in the chat comments.
No, board members, are there any questions or comments?
And if you want, I can talk about what the committee put together for how we wanted to develop the scholarship.
Yes, please.
Okay. So our leadership team at Newcomb High School met. So that was Principal McLaughlin, the department heads, myself, and our counselor, to try to figure out what would best serve our students. And so we came up with the concept of Tohanada, which is the Wave or Rising Water Scholarship, for specifically students who are interested in going into voc tech programs. We felt like a lot of our students are already supported in regular academic programs, but not necessarily welding or agriculture or other types of, things like that. And so that is what we're hoping that the scholarship can fund. We were looking at the original amount of $2,500, and we thought of a first prize and a second prize of $1,500 and $1,000 to try to make a significant impact for some of the costs of those programs. When I talked to Christy again, she offered up maybe a third prize of an additional $500. So that would bring the total donation to $3,000. And so many of our students at Newcomb are trade and vocational oriented. There's not a lot of scholarships for those types of programs, especially for our students who don't like to, go very far away from home. And so this scholarship would actually be pretty significant for them. If we have students who are interested in carpentry, welding, culinary arts, and we're hoping that this type of a program can help them to achieve those goals. We talked about how being involved in the community, either through volunteer or just culturally being involved with families, and taking Navajo language, government, or history classes is also an important piece, we thought. And then, of course, having a minimum GPA of a 2.0. the teacher recommendation should come from a voc tech teacher. That's kind of one of the things that we thought was most important, in addition to an interview and a quick essay by those students. So the proposal, I believe I sent to Sharon, so I don't know if you guys got a copy of that, but I did send it with our request to be on the agenda. So you should have that much. And so I don't know if you guys have questions for either me or for Christy.
Board members, are there any questions for our presenters?
I have no questions.
Go ahead, Ms. Aspis.
Yeah, I that's the goal that we're always told about, you know, when we go to New Mexico School Board Association, and especially during legislation time, you know, that's one area that they always talk about career readiness, and little do they realize that a lot of those classes, you know, through Bond Wilson and even through the college, you know, they're all tied to our industries here, the power plants and the mining, and so you see a lot of those donations given to Bond Wilson, to San Juan College, and they have a lot of those equipment, and so it's great that what you're doing for Newcomb area, you know, that and I really appreciate that, you know, that
Thank
this
you. You're
really comes in handy, you know, for somebody who wants to pursue those type of trades, and I think it's just great. Thank you.
glad to help. Thank you.
Are there any more questions? Secretary
Okay.
George? I heard somebody.
Yes, that was me.
Go ahead, Mr. Montoya.
I just wanted to thank you, Ms. Curley, as well.
Board members, Aspis and Montoya, Superintendent Carlson, community, colleagues. My name is Margaret Trochak, and I'm the Human Resources Director, and I will be presenting a vacancy list and then a recruiting update. So I'll go ahead if there aren't any questions before I get started. Here is the vacancy listing, and you can see it on the screen there. Highlight is that the assistant principal positions are a result of transfers from within. We've had 62 either location transfers within schools or transfers from position to position this month, according to iVisions, and also 63 new hires are in the system. Not all have come on board. There's a few EPARs outstanding, but they are in the pipeline. So these particular assistant principal jobs are a result of people moving within the district. So I think that's a really good sign. And then you see data and technology, that is a supervisor position. And then elementary teaching, we have 4 ISEL positions out there, also known as instructional and social emotional learning administrator positions. Those are new. And I believe there were 11 approved, and many of those are filled already. Go ahead, you can go ahead and scroll. I'm sure if someone's got a question, they'll stop us. And then you can see the rest of the elementary openings there. Middle school, there's a few there, a couple of social studies, and ISS. High school teaching, we've got the ROTC instructor position open. band, consumer science, ISS positions, a few special education. Then you see the athletics and activities there. And so those are posted. And then there's a few nursing openings there for support services. And we have the social workers are always a challenge to fill. I believe we have some contractors there. And then non-certified, we have some EA positions. And we've got some cook positions open. Custodian. And then we've got the specialty positions in maintenance, electrician, and HVAC. The good news for the community and everyone else that's listening is that our salaries are extremely competitive and we've got great benefits. So this year we've had the opportunity to do more with our salary schedules. So like people apply if they're interested. We need to fill these positions. Here's the transportation, got a few there as well. Go ahead, there's curriculum and instruction has a couple MLSS coaches open as well. So that's the vacancy listing. I think I may be able to end about
You muted, Ms. Trocek. We can't hear you.
Can anybody hear me?
You're back on.
Okay. It wasn't muted on my side. I apologize. Where did I stop? Just a couple seconds ago or a long time ago?
When you said that we might have questions and then you were going to explain.
Oh, okay. Yes, I'd like to start with what we're presently doing on the recruiting and then move into the future plans. Right now, one of the things that we are doing is advertising in the Cortez Journal. And I believe that Jared is going to show us the actual listing of that. And then when we go, so not sure what we're doing right now. Are we going to the Grow Your Own or the? Here we go. I think it's in color. At least the slide that I saw when we were looking at this before it was sent to the Cortez Journal was a turquoise color, I believe. But here we go. There. So that's what's in the Cortez Journal right now. And I know that we are getting applicants and hiring teachers from that area. I know we're much more favorable in the salary arena than they are able to be right now. And so just wanted to show that. That's something that we're presently doing. We're also advertising on KSJD, it's Cortez radio station. We are also doing paid Facebook advertising targeting teachers and others that are interested in education that follow any district pages, targets that audience. And then also other channels on Facebook related to education. So we're targeting those. Those are paid advertisements. We also have continued with our relationships with all of the colleges and universities, one of which is, well, there's 4, I think, on the consent agenda, but I am being told that 3 of those were already approved, but one, the NMHU one, we do have a candidate for that program. So as soon as that is approved, we will be able to move ahead with that program as an apprentice. I think it's a year-long apprentice. And then we still have our relationship with San Juan College in the alternative licensure program. Fort Lewis College is recruiting for the master's programs, and we're assisting with that. And then we have J1 teachers. We have 5 or 6. I think we're in the process of getting a 6th one assigned to positions in our district. We don't know for sure when they're coming, but we are hoping that it's sometime in August. So that's another strategy. And so we also email out our vacancy listings normally on a weekly basis to all of the chapter houses. And then there's also the employers in the local area, like workforce. I don't have that handy at the second, but we also have websites linked to Frontline, K12jobspot.com. We work on Indeed.com. We hope to boost hard to fill positions on that job site or that, website, sorry. And then teachers to teachers.com, NMREAP and MCEL and MCEL. And so all the vacancy lists go out to about 15 different colleges and universities as well weekly. So that's kind of in a nutshell what we're doing presently. What we would like to do going forward is public relations and HR is collaborating. And we'd like to bring in the athletic director as well into that, because there's some opportunity to show some posters. There are some whiteboards, I think, at some of the schools that could possibly roll a little bit of our advertising, and we could just collaborate together. And public relations is also checking into to Newcomb radio station, KNDN, to do some advertising in the Navajo language, Cni. Farmington radio stations as well. And so we hope to just keep everything that we're doing going. And then I wanted to show you the Grow Your Own page, just because there's some good information on there for the community and for any interested teachers, educational related folks. Looking at that page to the right there, Cni College, there's some links there. Cni College Education Program, for example. That would be something someone can check into. Fort Lewis College also has a link on there to their graduate program. And there's an information
Ms. Trocek, you're breaking up again and we can't hear you.
We do have 5 national boards. We do have 5 teachers. How's that? We do have 5 teachers that are national board certified. That was the last thing I was saying there. Can you hear me now? Is that okay?
Yes, now we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay. I'll try to keep my head forward. I think that might make a difference with the speaker. And there's San Juan College has a link as well. And then there's Three Rivers Education Foundation, Southwest Teacher Quality Partnerships, and then there's a couple things under miscellaneous to check into if someone's interested there, CES, LEAP, and NISN. Just wanted to point that out for anybody listening or watching, because I think any opportunity that we have to the community and anybody else that's listening, they can tell someone else, go on the ccsdnm.org website, go to the human resources page. There's a number of tabs with all kinds of information in it. So that is my recruiting update. I stand for questions, comments, concerns.
Board members, do you have any questions or comments for Ms. Trocek?
I have a comment.
Go ahead, Ms. Astis.
Ms. Trocek, can we see that first page of your listing? Your HR listing?
There it is.
On the assistant principal, that's the only ones that are lacking as far as administration?
If there are transfers in process, there could be more openings, but there has been a lot of movement. So hiring is going on all of the time. I do believe, I think Mr. Carlson could probably answer in, as of currently of any other principal positions that he thinks might be coming up. But I think that all the other ones have been interviewed and hired.
That's correct, Ms. Trocek. The only two are those two assistant principals. Matter of fact, I'm on Frontline right now looking at the candidates for those positions. So all the principal positions are filled at this time.
And these just became open, right, with the transfers that just occurred. So
My question was, is this something that we could just absorb with Shiprock and the assistant principal? I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud, and I don't know what it takes to be a principal, but some of these, I feel like we need more people downstream than in those positions, and so I'm wondering, to get more teachers in our classrooms and more support in those areas than we do in supervision, and so I'm wondering if, and it may come to that. I mean, where we start, absorbing some of these positions, so and the principal's going to have to take more on, and so that we have better support and better whatever that has to offer to our students first. And I think beforehand with the old administration, it was top heavy, and so I think our priorities weren't really. I mean, it was talked about, and then it was only verbal, but when it really came to walking that talk, it didn't hold up. So that would be my suggestion, comment, and then as far as, can we go to the next page? See, I see a lot of teachers and needed, and a lot of them are in elementary. Can we go up a little bit more? Yeah, the elementary, and so I seriously hope that you're looking at those things, Superintendent, and because to me, I believe, again, not coming from a career such as in education, but it's been said that I think the real valuable years are in the early. So if we can get those first before we start with administrative or any type of other supervision positions, and so that we can have a decent school year.
Do you mind if I respond a little bit there, Board Member Asmus?
Thank you.
So a lot of those positions are, you do see the grade level positions. There's quite a few that are going to be really difficult to fill, regardless of any kind of administration positions. If you see that, I'm looking at a little bit above there. There's an art position one. There's an art, a couple gifted, a couple music. Preschool are always very difficult, especially preschool special ed. And if you go back to the previous page, there's also, I believe, 2 bilingual teachers on there, and those are difficult to fill. And I don't know that they're necessarily, in trying to fill those, are going to take away anything from, or administration would take away anything from those positions. So we are looking at that, and I do appreciate your comments, Board Member Aspis, and I do believe that during the school year we are going to sit down and look at a lot of different positions, and I don't know if there are any of these ones that are listed that are going to be cut, and I don't disagree with you. If you look at the number of people, for instance, you mentioned central office fairly often. We've had those discussions, and so we will be looking at positions there as well as administrative positions. I know there's a lot of comments. There was a comment made earlier by an audience member who has, he's left the building, but he made a comment about the SEL administrators. Those are temporary positions at this time. They're at-will positions, and the thought with those is to kind of work in conjunction with the safety net folks and Ms. Sutherland's team, because we have a lot of needs with social emotional learning with our kids, and those will not be dean positions. Those will not be like an assistant principal position. Those positions are directed for social emotional learning needs that our students are exhibiting coming out of this time. We will examine those positions 100% at the end of this school year for as long as they're there. And I do agree with you. It does look a little bit scary seeing that number of elementary positions. High school and middle school honestly isn't too bad at this time, except we do have an issue with special education positions. Anyway, thank you for your comments, and we will be looking at those. As far as those assistant principal positions, we will be continuing with those for this school year. Thank you.
I have
Ms.
another
Aspie.
comment.
Go ahead, Mr. Montoya.
Okay, I know we've talked about this before, but just like with everybody else, we're struggling to compete with all the districts around us. And I really appreciate the fact that somebody made a very good business decision to reach beyond the state lines to recruit, because what the state of New Mexico to help us be more competitive. And as everybody knows, where we're located, this is a regional hub. So whatever we can do in respects to making those business decisions to pull people in, whether it's from Colorado, Arizona, even Utah, because I've had employees come all the way from Landing to work down in District Rock. I've seen that. You know, what we can do as a school district to pull them in, I think that's really good. And the advertising that you're doing, the reaching out to the colleges again, that, like I said, that bodes very well on part of the district to try to recruit, but knowing and understanding that some of these positions, as the superintendent said, are going to be a challenge to be filled, because just like everyone else, we're competing for those positions. So thank you.
Ms. Aspis.
Ms. Vice President Haskell, I have a comment.
Go ahead, Ms. George, or Secretary George.
Mr. Carlson, can we get a, we probably would need more counselors, you know, not for SEL, under the principal, and because counselors need to do more of their counseling and not more of their administrative positions. So if you could work that out and look at that. And then the other one is, Mr. Carlson, do we have anything in the works for Navajo preference for vacancy listings and recruitings through HR? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I'm going to go ahead and defer to, I don't want to misspeak on that, especially because that's a legal question. I'm going to defer to Ms. Trocheck on the Navajo preference question.
Sorry, I was trying to unmute myself.
Fine.
Thank you, Mr. Carlson, Secretary George. In our hiring practices, we hire the most qualified position. And this is a very sensitive topic throughout the community, but that has been our practice. There are many departments that are predominantly Native, and we've got a majority of Native people working in our workforce at CCSD. And I know that when I am hiring, I do take that into consideration, and I do feel that our hiring managers are doing that. A lot of us work on the Navajo reservation, and it only makes sense to do that.
I have a comment first. Can I make a comment? I've skipped over her twice, so I apologize for that. Yeah. According to our land leases, there is supposed to be a Navajo preference. If we need to check into that, because that's one of the provisions of having our school district on the Navajo Nation. So it's very concerning for me to hear that we're not adhering to that. I would like that looked at, because that's not the way it's supposed to be. Thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Aspis.
My question is for Board Attorney, Ms. Chappelle.
Yes, ma'am.
So with the preference, Navajo preference has come up, and as a large employer on the reservation, probably next to as far as school districts are concerned, probably next to Gallup. But why is it that we are tiptoeing around Navajo preference? And I would just like to know that answer, and why are we doing that? And I thought it was something that was
our land lease, and the language also balances that language with the language that says as long as it doesn't violate state law or federal law. So there are some circumstances where that becomes a little bit gray, and that's, I think, where we have some of the hesitation. And so I think what we could do, and I was not really aware of how we dealt with that within HR, but I'd be more than happy to sit down with Ms. Trocheck and kind of walk through what some of those gray areas are, so we can have a better policy on how to deal with that. So there's less gray.
Well, I think it would yes, it would help in the hiring and how to approach, that either that language or that talk or that discussion, and also with, I guess, thinking about it even more as we as a school district, and we're always asking for local, that what we can offer in our community and grab from our community. So with this Navajo preference and then to really, I don't know if we can get data on it. I don't know, but I think Ms. Trocheck would probably know if perhaps our nepotism policy is in the way. And maybe that's something the board needs to lift and to allow some of our people to come back and work for the district. Thank you.
Board Member Aspas, just I want to make sure that I'm understanding you. Are you saying potentially that one of the reasons we can't hire some folks is because they have family members already working, and that also cuts against the Navajo Preference Act?
No, as we are hiring more Navajo and
oh, I see. You're saying it could become a concern.
And then maybe because of in some cases now presently, and then maybe in the future that perhaps the nepotism is getting in the way also. And that's just not Navajo, that's, I mean, everybody. And where, you know, the communities that we have, especially, you know, looking at Newcomb and Noshchitty, that it prevents from filling those positions. So I'm wondering is, you know, I'm just throwing this out to the board that may be something that we may need to look at. And I think the only one that would, well, maybe, I don't know, but would see this would probably be Ms. Trocheck, or HR. Thank you.
Board members, I'm happy to work with Ms. Trocheck on this issue and report back to you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Are there any additional questions or comments from the board? Mr. Wells, are you still online?
I am still here.
You have any questions?
Well, I don't understand Board Member Aspas's question about nepotism preventing positions being filled. I have to have more information on that. That's a new wrinkle that I haven't heard about or dealt with. I'm not in favor of abolishing the board's nepotism policy. I think that leads to problems, especially where you might have relatives overseeing somebody else's and the conflict of interest that could possibly bring up. I would really hesitate to waive or to abolish. I think we've seen the adverse side of dismantling that. As far as the Navajo preference, I've heard comments about it where it's I don't think a preference for any over qualifications is a good thing for anybody. I think the policy to hire the best applicant uh, is the best policy. I think we can really get into the weeds quickly if we abandon or abolish that, to the detriment of our students that we're trying to serve and to better. Not to say that there's not qualified Navajos for the positions, but if the best qualified person is not hired, then I think we do an injustice um, to the students and thereby the community.
Go ahead, Ms. Aspis. So, yeah, that's a discussion that we're gonna have to really talk about. It's one of our board policies about nepotism, and in the past, I've seen it waived on the superintendent part, but you kind of answered your own question, Mr. Wells, where the best be hired, and yeah, I think those things were put in place for reasons. However, we're coming to a point in time that that's it may be a hindrance to
I have a question, Vice
to
President Askey. Hold on, Ms. George. Ms. Aspis is making her comment.
to the success of our students. And as you said, you know, you want the best. And who's to say that somebody's relative may be the best? And but we're in a time where we may have to open that and probably set new rules. But you know, again, that's a whole different discussion. But you know, I'm throwing that out there that you know, the board may in the future, you know, really talk about this. And but as far as the naval preference, I think we really need to be clear, and it can't be a hush hush thing. And I know, like, people throw out the racist card, and but we are talking about sovereign land. We're talking about reservation, and we talk about respect for the tribe, and that language and that those words are within the land lease, as Vice President Haskey stated. So, you know, we can't be hush hush about it. We can't tiptoe around it. We need to find out where we really stand, and especially employment wise, and into really filling these positions, and then too we talk about student loan forgiveness, and I know that that's been a big area nationally and statewide, but as far as our schools, and I heard this from another teacher that was pursuing a higher I think her master's, and she mentioned that she was working with Ojo School, and so that she could have her student loan forgiven. And so again, we need to really find out those information, and people that are pursuing and have such debt, you know, that they can be given that information. And people always say, no, you just look on PED, you just look on their website. And government website is not a fun thing to look at. And so I think if we could set up our website to have a link, or even with HR, so that people can look and see and get the information they need. And that may be a deciding factor also. Thank you.
Ms. George, you may make your comment or ask your question.
Thank you. Sorry, Miss Aspis, I didn't mean to interrupt when you were talking. But to Mr. Carlson, you know, the board policy for nepotism is for the superintendent, that the up in the upper management portion, like, you know, directors and of course supervising their own relative. Um, and then as far as the superintendent hiring their spouse or vice versa, I think that's where it's in the board policy. So that's where we need to really watch, um, you know, uh, how we hire in that process. But I know that there was a waiver that was granted for the previous administration to allow that nepotism to happen. But I think that's where we need to be extra careful. But that's my only comment. Thank you.
Are you done with your comment, Ms. George?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions, Mr. Montoya?
I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I'll just end with doing our diligence to be following what's in place. That's my recommendation, to have the land leases looked at and working for different organizations, especially on tribal land. There are those things that govern. I wouldn't say that that people, Navajo people, like Mr. Wells said, that we don't have the credentials. I think that we have to look at the language and really be careful with statements like that also. So that's something that I really would like to set up, is to have that thoroughly looked at. And like Ms. Aspis stated, these things are not to be ignored, pushed under the rug, avoided. These things are necessary, these conversations are necessary, and that we really need to look at those things.
Comment?
Go ahead, Mr. Wells.
I didn't mean to disparage anything or anyone, Vice President. I merely, if the applicant is best qualified and Navajo by all means certainly hire them. But I don't think it does the students justice to hire somebody just because they're Navajo if they're not qualified for the position. That's all I was saying.
Appreciate the clarification, Mr. Wells. Are there any other questions or comments? Ms. Aspis?
Mr. Wells, I know how you feel, and yeah, it is, and that's why I think we really need to put this on the agenda in the future, and really have those discussions, because again, I think, you know, we're coming into a time where people are talking about all these, you know, the that it's difficult to find teachers. It's difficult, you know, for the education system. But during the conference this past week, I all of a sudden I sat there and I thought, you know, that one of the stories that had come up was about small town, and that, you know, with the RFP, the board member was the only one that provided a snow. He could remove the snow because he had the equipment. He was the only one in town, so there was allowances. And then I thought to myself, you know, with these openings and positions that we have, maybe that's the answer. I think for the most part, I'm usually the one that takes the negative side first, and then, but I'd like to think of this as a positive, especially for our kids. Thank you.
Thank you for all the comments and questions. If there isn't anything further, we will move to letter E.
Vice President Heskey, I have a comment.
Go ahead, Secretary George.
Pursuant to the Navajo Preference in Employment Act, NEPA, all employees doing business within the territorial jurisdiction of Navajo Nation or engaged in any contact with Navajo Nation shall give preference in employment to Navajos. That's my only comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. George. Any other questions or comments? We will move on to letter E, district housing for police officers in Ojo and Newcomb area by Candace Thompson.
Board members, Mr. Carlson, I was asked to report on the housing of the officers. Currently, we have an officer at Shiprock Admin Office. A K-9 officer is housed there. The SRO will be housed at TBA. And then we also do have an officer housed in Newcomb. The home in Ojo is the only home that we have there. And the family living there are both teachers and a healthcare provider to the district. So that's where we're at today.
Yes, you may, Mrs. Aspis.
So back when we were contracting, working on a new permanent superintendent, which was what, about 2-3 years ago, and we talked about the housing, and it went on to that house at Ojo, and at that time I was told that it was one of the maintenance that was housed in there. And so from that point, this has been an ongoing discussion, and I brought this up many times, and we've already had an incident up there where they suspected a shooter, and so I'm wondering what happened to that. Was it lost, or is this studies show that with the presence of an officer, even just the unit outside a residence or in the neighborhood, that it really prevents a lot of crime, just the presence. And so now I hear that 2 teachers are in there. And so this is a total lack of respect, not only for me as the representative of that community, but also of Ojo. We've already had an incident there, and I don't know how many times I had to ask. And now we gotta wait for this contract to wear out, right? Is there a contract on this house?
Vice President, Board Member Aspis. These are teachers that teach at Shiprock High School, and one also teaches at OHO. I'm not real sure where, it's a family, a husband and wife and their daughter that live in this unit. I'm not sure where the health care
No,
provider, which
I
is
don't
the
wanna know
daughter,
who the occupants are. I just wanna know how long the contract is.
as long as they're employees of the school district.
Never mind.
Vice President Haskey, Board Member Aspis,
Yes.
to your point, to Member Aspis's point, that information was never relayed to me. Our priority has always been to house teachers first, that they have first priority in the homes, and that's the direction that we've been given.
I have a comment. That is totally a lie. And Mr. Carlson, can you please have, I'd like the minutes from 2 years back when we were doing the housing and to show, and anything regarding housing. How many, and also SROs, because that is a total lie.
I respectfully disagree about that, Board Member Aspis. I was never directed by Mr. Benavides or anybody prior to him being in that seat that that home was for an officer.
So my question is not a directive. My question is, there was discussion. And so I'm not here to give a directive to personnel.
Yes, ma'am. I will look into it. I will look back and see what we can find.
Okay, I appreciate that, Mr. Carlson. So we'll look into the minutes from previous conversations about the housing and SROs. Thank you. Does that complete your report?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We're moving on to letter F, listing of professional development for school year 21-22 by Department of Directors. Who's the? Okay, thank you.
I'll go ahead and do that one, and then I might have to, depends on what the level of questioning is for this, that we might have to talk to some directors. But it's being pulled up right now. I believe that's the one. So this was asked for, I believe, in Thursday's meeting, the work session meeting. If you could make that a little bit bigger, and for me especially. I don't know about everybody else. So the question was, what kind of professional development different departments went to that were not brought in or weren't virtual. We had some discussions just this morning in a director's meeting, and that kind of went on a while. There were quite a few virtual trainings, and many of the virtual trainings were free throughout the departments. And so I believe the question was, could you show where the travel occurred among the various departments? So the first one is the CNI department, and I'm having a hard time following that. I'm just going to look at my computer. I have the same thing here as well. There were 2 attendees, February 15th and 19th in New Orleans, Louisiana, for the Elementary and Secondary Education Act National Conference. There were 2 different Albuquerque conferences. Actually, those were one followed by the other where the director attended. That was the academic retreat in Albuquerque, followed by the NMASPO Spring Budget Conference, where several other folks actually went, I believe, on the next page or 2. And then there was a CNI conference that was attended by 4 in New Orleans, June 28th through 30th, by the director, the federal programs coordinator, and 2 coaches. And if you would like, I can ask if there are any questions per tab. So what we've done is there's several tabs on the bottom, and we can go kind of one at a time. So if there's any questions on this one, I can stand for questions on the CNI training, or I can wait till the very end if you'd like.
Are there any questions for Mr. Carlson? Board members?
Tasky.
Yes, Mr. Montoya.
Yeah, I was the one that asked for the report, and I'll wait till the end.
Okay. So if we would do the next one, this is the finance. Again, I have it on a tab on the same sheet, and that one is spread out. So the finance, if you kind of follow along, I know it's huge right there. There were 7 attendees on September 15th through 17th. That was online and in person, so that one quite possibly might need to be taken off because I don't think I don't know how many went there that were in person, so we might not have to ask that question. I'm not sure the answer to that one. Then there were 4 for the New Mexico Public Procurement Association. There were 8 attendees, again, online and in person, for the Winter Conference, New Mexico Association of School Business Officials. I might need some clarification from Mr. Yazzie if there's questions on that. Then the bottom 2 are in person, one at the NMPPA Spring Conference, New Mexico Public Procurement Association, and again, then the NMASBO that had 4 attendees, which was the director, a coordinator, a supervisor, and a specialist. And that was finance. So we'll go ahead and go to ICO. The Intercultural and Community Outreach Department had these conferences. I'll try and go through them fairly quickly. There was an in-person conference at San Juan College that 5 attended. Then there was an in-person conference in Montezuma, Utah that 2 attended. That was April and June. One that safety net coordinator attended in Farmington. There were 4 who went in February to the Unity Leadership Mid-Year Conference. And I don't see where that one is. Maybe Dr. Lopez Martinez. Phoenix. Would help me out there. Am I missing something? It was in Phoenix. Okay. 2 went to a conference in November, the La Cosecha conference. Where was that one? Albuquerque. Okay. Let's see. Yes, ma'am.
So is that the same safety net that was talked about earlier? Is that the same?
No, the safety net coordinator is a different position. That's one of the 3 coordinators who was still here.
Okay.
I believe that's Safe Talk. I think that's what my notes say.
Let's see, and then the Unity Conference, 4 went to Minneapolis. And then in Atlantic City, 1 went there, the JOM supervisor. JOM supervisor and the equity supervisor went to Washington, D.C. The cultural specialist in June also went to Farmington. And the cultural specialist also went to the Inspire Conference in Albuquerque. And there is a description, and board members, this is on board docs, and if you would like, I could also send it to you in a different form, and if you want an easier to read form, maybe. It's easier to kind of see everything. But that's ICO, and now we can go to human resources. Let me get my tab up here. There are only 3 for the human resources. There was way back last July, there were 2 folks who went to Albuquerque for the New Mexico School Personnel Association. There was an in-person Phoenix that the HR director went to in November the 17th and 18th. And there was on another NMASBO, I believe that is NMASBO Spring Budget Workshop again in Albuquerque, that an HR specialist attended that. And that's the trainings that were attended by the various departments. And I stand for questions, but again, likely I'll be looking out at the directors and saying, help me. I might not have been here for that. But anyway, I do stand for questions.
Are there any questions from the board members or comments?
Ms. Haskell.
Yes, Mr. Montoya.
So, Mr. Carlson.
Yes, sir.
In regards to that training, or the people that attend, are they required to come back and share that information either with the department, the schools, or the district?
And that depends on the different training, the different departments. And so the short answer is yes, but that's, you asked that was a loaded question because you talked about schools as well as the various other departments. Generally speaking, and there's a wide range. I'll take the Cni Conference, for instance. We had folks from Cni, from finance, from ICO. No, there weren't ICO, from HR. So for 3 of those departments, those folks that attended together, along with myself, that was the first conference I had been to in the interim superintendent role. Those folks used that information for their jobs and shared within their departments, and also shared in director meetings. So for those kind of things, yes. For the conferences where folks are going away, the expectation should be, and I can go to ICO, and they went to Minneapolis and Atlantic City and Washington. Yes, the expectation is they share with their department, and that information be used district-wide. I can talk a little bit more about that. It's not a vacation for folks, and it shouldn't be used that way. So the expectation is that it's used. At CNI would be used throughout. That would be information to be used with schools because they work more with schools than, for instance, human resources and finance. Finance, if they go away, that information would be used within their departments. I think I'm starting to ramble. Hopefully I answered the question. I'd be happy for more.
No, I appreciate that because I understand that there is specific training that individuals need from the departments to stay current. I respect that. I appreciate that. But certainly when opportunities present themselves for individuals to express what it is, and again, especially depending on the capacity, whether it's to their department, to the schools, or to the district, or even just coming back and giving a general report of what had transpired and what was picked up, because even with the board, we're required to have a certain amount of hours each year. And not everybody goes to every single training. And I certainly would like to think that we as board members are being responsible to come back and express some of that information or the conversations that we've had with other people from around the country and let our constituents in the district know that this is what we're doing and why. So I appreciate your response to that. And again, it's a matter of really looking at the efficiency and effectiveness of this training and how it's applied and how we can better actually out of these departments. And then again, how it makes the efficiency and effectiveness of teaching for the kids as well. And the other thing to it, and you kind of alluded to it just a little early, vacation. I remember there was a time where a school in community, grant school, was lambasted because there was a number of people that went on a training in Hawaii, and that was a response from the community, was that people were using it as a travel agency. And certainly we don't want to get to that point here within CCSD, because again, you know, as a board, as Ms. Aspis likes to say, we're the ones who mind the purse strings and make sure we have efficient and effective use of that funds, and the people that are going to the training are certainly benefiting to the benefit of students. That's only prudent and wise as a business to be able to do that. Anybody that does that should come back and reinvest that knowledge back into their areas. So that's kind of why, and I know, especially at this time, we're still waiting on for impact aid. I know some of these departments, these grants require training. And I'm just certain, like, and hope that everybody else, the other board members, are in agreement that we use that money to the best of our ability and try to get the most education out of it. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any more comments for Mr. Carlson?
I have a comment.
Go ahead, Ms. Aspis.
So before, we've seen like different administrators up there, during our conferences as well, the New Mexico School Board Association, and I don't know if you know that. I know that you're still new to your position, but such as finance, we've seen, and HR, because they do have breakout sessions on those things. And so, and I was, looking at it, and it's kind of like gets us on the same page on whatever knowledge that they're sharing and what we know. So just to let you know. Thank you.
Are there any more questions or comments? Mr. Wells? Ms. George?
No comment.
I don't have a comment, no.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Ms.
Yes,
Aspie?
go ahead, Mr. Montoya.
I have one more question for the superintendent.
Go ahead, sir.
I don't know how this would correlate, Mr. Carlson. And I know, I think the one that stood out to me is they went to, some people went to training in Minneapolis. Is that where it was?
Yes, sir.
Is that the same one where the students went to, or is that different?
I believe that's the same one.
So that was the training, or was that the trip for the students? Or was it two different things?
I believe I'm going to go ahead, and I do have a director who's motioning to me to not talk much, but she's ready to answer that, and I can add to it if I need to. Mr. Montoya, I don't know if you heard that.
No, I didn't. Would you please just give me a quick summary?
Synopsis.
Yeah, there you go.
So, yeah, it was both. Yeah, there were some components for both, for training for the adults who went, as well as for student activities. And I believe if you look at the description to the right, and you probably, I don't even know if you can see it on that one, because there was quite a few on that one, so you may not have seen it scrolled to the right. I can just read what it says. Restoring the spirit of Native youth, ideas on youth-led community service projects, and how to address social issues in their communities, which definitely involves the safety net coordinator, equity supervisor, and JOM supervisor, as well as other youth who attended the conference. So that kind of sums it up.
For clarification, is this the Unity Conference? Okay. Mr. Montoya, did you hear that? It's for the Unity Conference and the Equity Council.
So those are two separate things?
No, the
Two
students
separate
that
programs?
the students that were representing those areas attended that conference, the Unity
Okay.
Leadership Mid-Year Conference.
Okay. All right. One of the other things too is, I guess this would be a question for the superintendent. As far as including people from the buildings, the educators, because a lot of times, and I've seen in the past where people from the admin will go to training, but how much of that information truly gets to the people that where it needs to be applied? That would be my certainly consideration and question at the same time. Are we involving some of the people from within the buildings to attend this training? Thank you.
So, in answer to that question, the number one department that does do that and will continue to do that hopefully in the future is the Cni folks. And actually student support would do that as well, although they did not attend outside conferences. They did everything virtually. And I mean, that's a great example. There is a tab on the spreadsheet that I can share. I don't believe it's on this presentation, but there's the virtual trainings we did this year were there was a large amount. I believe there were probably 40 different trainings that different departments did virtually. And that's a real good example of how student support worked with the student support, the teachers, special ed teachers. Also CNI worked in conjunction with schools.
Mr. Carlson, may I contribute?
You betcha.
Hi
This is Ms.
there,
Huffman.
Board Member Montoya, members of the board. In answer to your question, Mr. Montoya, yes, we definitely, for the ISTE conference, we had extended that invitation to principals and teachers in the district. And in fact, we did have one teacher from Najoni go on the trip with us. She's not listed because she doesn't work within the department. We also sponsored through the CNI department several school teams to go to Solution Tree professional learning communities at work trainings throughout this spring. So definitely wanting to continue to encourage our teachers to be partaking of those sorts of things with us.
I appreciate that response, so thank you. Again, I think it's really important to include and encourage them to be able to broaden their lens. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other comments or questions from the board members?
I have a comment.
Go ahead, Ms. Aspis.
So, just to continue where that thought Mr. Montoya was sharing, you know, where I work, they usually don't send the whole crew, you know, so, or the whole department, but they do send, say, one or two, maybe even three, and those are private companies, you know, but when we do come back from those, we share that whatever we saw, what we were trained, or we shared that with the rest of the crew. And so, you know, that's something I'm already aware of and used to, and perhaps that's something we, you know, we could practice, and, you know, just throwing that out there as a suggestion. And such as, you know, with inflation, with things happening, and meaning, you know, we already, I believe we already have a skeletal staff at schools, and we still have a lot of positions to fill. So I think we need to limit those, and you know, just like when, you know, I brought up where I work, there's always the one lead person that's always going every conference, you know, and so I'm wondering, you know, if that's the case here, and if it's always a certain person, and it's not shared, you know what I'm getting at, but you know, without just throwing those things out there, and maybe something to consider.
Thank you. And I think all the directors heard that, and I agree with you on that. We don't need to send the same person all the different conferences.
Ms. Haskell?
Yes. Yes, Mr. Montoya.
Well, I appreciate that last comment, Ms. Haskell, because that's kind of what I was alluding to. And to your point of the what they do out at the mine in private business, it does make good business sense to be able to send somebody one or two and then have them come back and share that information. And again, that was really the point that I was trying to get to, is that the efficiency and the effectiveness in the use of that money to be able to bring it back and teach and help more people rather than just one or two. So thank you for that.
Oops. Thank you, Mr. Montoya. Is there any other questions or comments?
Ms. Vice President Haskell, I have a question and a comment.
Go ahead, Mr. Secretary George.
Mr. Carlson, can we have ICO explain, or could you get a explanation as to why during the Unity Conference there was a student who didn't participate? They were on a waiting list, and the family wasn't told about it until it was too late. And so I was just wondering what happened to the planning stages of that, and the student didn't get to go based on that.
Thank you, Ms. George. I will have a response tomorrow from the ICO director, and I will send that to you, and I can send it to the entire board. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carlson. And also to Mr. Montoya and Ms. Aspas's point, I wholeheartedly agree about different people attending the conferences with different eyes. You gain different perspectives. So I think it really would behoove us to think about doing that, a rotation, because you know, depending on the information being disseminated, their life experiences, or the different lenses, they could bring a lot to the table. And I think I expressed that at the New Mexico business conference, because a lot of the information I noticed was really tailored to what I would consider boots on the ground, the ones that are working in the schools that have that interaction with the students. So that would also be something that I would be in favor of, is having a rotation, not just having the same people over and over, because we need to always, at the end of the day, think of our kids, our students, and what would really benefit them. Thank you. Okay, if there aren't any other questions or comments, then we will move on to letter G, the budget adjustments and journal entries by Donovan Yazzie.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you, Vice President Haskell, members of the board, Superintendent Carlson. We have tonight one budget adjustment request. It is a maintenance bar for Fund 24330. It is to add the additional fees for the instructional, social, emotional administrators, as well as the security team and the assessment coordinator and education technology coach. Any questions?
Are there any questions from the board? Questions or comments?
I don't
Okay.
have any questions.
Okay. We will move on to item 4, review. Thank you, Mr. Yazzie. Review and consent items and items to be pulled from the consent agenda for discussion and or approval.
Before we continue, I just want to add that I know if anybody's really always tight on the purse strings, it's me. But you know, I do realize that you know, again, I go back to my own with training and things like that from my profession, my career. You know, we just had one training, and that happened about maybe 6 months ago, and so I know the importance of training, and it's always good and to keep current, you know, and then you know it's always good. It's always good to go to those and network, and so I'm not against anything like that. I kind of see it or learned it the hard way because even in my own, we in the last, I say 10 years, had no training, and other than just keeping our cards current, and that was mandatory, and so I do realize the importance. I do realize not only the training but also the networking part of it, and you know, and it's a good it's good to get among other people in your craft, your profession, and you know, and just you know, talk. Everything doesn't have to be always technical, or so I see that. So I just wanted to put that out there as well. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, number 4, review and consent items and items to be pulled from the consent agenda for discussion and or approval.
Everything's the same. Yeah, and where Priscilla was under the comments. So everything's the same.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the consent items on the agenda?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I second.
Okay, Mr. Montoya,
Yes.
Secretary George, President Wells,
Yes.
Ms. Aspis,
Yes.
and I vote yes. So 4 to approve. Then we move to number 5. Oh, approval of the consent agenda, which we did. B, approve minutes for June 16, 2022 work session, June 21st, 2022 regular school board, and June 27, 2022 special board meeting.
I move that we approve those minutes.
Oh, there's a back. Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought it was just one page. Okay. Can it go all together? Okay, can we, consent agenda. Mr. President Wells, would you like to amend your motion to approve the consent agenda from letter A to letter H? What is it? Oh, okay. Oh, okay. That's already done. Oh, okay. Never mind. Sorry. I didn't even see the second page, so I apologize for that. I'm a step behind. Okay. So we're at 6. Sorry. Okay. Board and superintendent report. Board members, any reports?
Ms. Askey.
Yes, Mr. Montoya, go ahead.
I just want to let people know that down here at in Albuquerque at the government meeting, and in respects to what we were just talking about, efficiency and effectiveness, I think I had said this before, that on my trip to San Diego, I did not go, and therefore I cost the district some money. But I just want to let the community know that that money was paid back, so it did not end up being a negative to the district. And again, that's just an example of ensuring that we're using the dollars wisely. So that money was returned back to the district for the airline ticket and the hotel stay. And hopefully what we can do while we're down here is to express what we had talked about at the work session, was to spark some interest in respects to the New Mexico Impact Aid Council that we were talking about and approved during the work session. So I'll be trying to get as many people hopefully involved and interested in doing that as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Montoya. Any other board reports? Go ahead, Ms. Aspis.
So we attended Mr. Wells, Ms. George, myself, we attended the leadership retreat in Taos. You know, with the breakout sessions, and I think what was kind of really talked about was the school shootings and the safety, and that was kind of prioritized, and it'll probably be that again during our region meetings. And so yes, there was some good breakout sessions on that, and then even showing the video where everybody knew the student, and mental issues, and his parents were both teachers, and long story short, he killed his parents and then went on to the school. But it was pretty sad, but you know, it just made me think about Newcomb, what occurred there for graduation, and you know, and I still haven't gotten feedback, and if the student was the one that attacked the teacher earlier that year, and on 2 occasions. And so but you know, we really need to go back. And then I sitting in those breakout sessions, you know, I was asking about, you know, just wondering to myself, what happened to zero tolerance? A campaign that I think it just lost gas on the way, you know, and but then again, I mean, there's so many factors to put into there. When traditionally, you know, students may act up at school, but when you know, some families traditionally, they come back home and when they're talked to in Navajo, they're talked to with endearing words in Navajo, not like, you know, scolding, not with labeling, negative labeling. I mean, these are endearing, and most of the time they're living with grandma and grandpa too, and so you kind of have a mix. You know, the student looks at himself as real negative when he goes to school, and then when he comes home, he's loved, and kind of puts that off balance a little, and so there's so many factors, and but yeah, these sessions were pretty valuable in talking about that, and then they also talked about how it's still a litigation case that's going on where PED lies. If we're a partner, if you go by the case Al Larkin, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but versus APS, that was a case, and that stated that PED was a partner with the local school boards in the decision making of, or the authority of the district. And then recently it's come down to where PED has ultimate authority. So then there's the litigation part of it, that where do we lie, or where our powers, or if we have any. And so I think that's something we're, as a board, going to have to decide, you know, that we need to join in on this. And because if it's determined, and they're really pushing it towards a legislative solution, and then the judge hearing it now was also a judge in the Ozzie Martinez. So we're really going to have to, I think we need to join it, and we need to make that decision as a board. But those were some of the things that were expressed and talked about at this leadership in Taos. So thank you.
Any other reports from the board members? Thank you, Ms. Aspis.
Yes.
Yes, Mr. President Wells.
Alluding to what Ms. Aspis is talking about, she and I spoke a little bit about having someone come up and present to the board about that lawsuit that Gallup McKinley is entered into. I think that would be a good thing to do, so that we could have a better understanding of it and express our support to Gallup McKinley School. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wells, or President Wells. Any other reports? Superintendent report?
Yeah, I just have a quick half a pager, maybe pager. I write it down for a couple reasons. One is because you don't want me to ramble. That's the main reason. But the other is just to make sure I stay on track. And I want to say just some specific things to the board about kind of what's going on in the next couple weeks. Summer's winding down. We're excited to get back to the important job of educating our children. So for this report, I'll mostly talk about what's happening in the coming weeks as administrators, staff, and students begin to report back to work and to school. Principals and assistant principals are already back at work, and some of them have been working throughout the summer as they try to get their schools fully staffed. These building principals will have several days of training next week, and we would like to invite any board members who are able to attend some of that training to attend. So the trainings are on the 5th, 6th, and 7th. The one in the middle is actually the one that is with the professional development team that worked with them last year. The other 2 days, the 25th and the 27th, are days when they'll be getting training, in-district training. And just so the board knows, they haven't really gotten much training. Last year, most of the principals, especially the new principals, had almost no training for areas such as finance, transportation, and that was difficult for them because they were just thrown into some. Part of that had to do with COVID, but we'll be working on it this year. Also, they'll be working just a little bit of the day on the 28th. Various departments will train principals in various district policies with an emphasis on the ways that central office can support principals. I talked to directors today about that's a huge expectation that I want to make sure that they're aware. All these departments, they're there to support principals and they're there to support schools. They're not there to talk about their policies and this is how we do things. They're there to make our district better for our kids and for our families. That's a huge expectation. School staff report to work on August 3rd, and I want the board to know our district training will look a little different this year. Because we will focus on central office staff going out to school communities this year, we'll have 3 back-to-school sessions at each of the 3 areas of Central Consolidated. We'll be back on August 3rd. That'll be in Shiprock. It'll be about 2.5 hours, maybe 3 hours. There'll be a breakfast. August 4th, we'll be down in Newcomb. August 5th, we'll be in Kirtland, and you're welcome to attend any and all of those board members. I believe the sites are going to be, at Shiprock will be the Phil, and Newcomb will be at the high school, and in Kirtland will be at the Performing Arts Center, the BIPAC. Again, each will have breakfast, a celebration for staff for the amount of years served, that kind of thing. Staff will be given a shirt, which is something a little bit different the way we're doing it this year, and you can see when they get those. Teachers, staff, and principals will spend the rest of those 3 days. There's only 3 days before school starts, the 3rd, 4th, and 5th. So the rest of the time will be spent with the principals in the building and then teachers working in the classroom. And the union has asked that 2 of those 2 full days would be teachers preparing for students. I said this before, I'll say it again, hopefully again and again. My biggest goal this year is to provide a positive environment, make Central Consolidated School District a place where staff members feel validated, where parents want to send their children because we have the best staff and the best programs. And we expect our children to learn at the highest levels. Speaking of children, students' first day of school is less than, believe it or not, 3 weeks away. And that's going to be on August 8th. So that's what we're all here for. And I, for one, look forward to that day. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Okay, number 7, requested action items or reports for the next meeting. We'll start with President Wells. Do you have any requests?
I don't have, not at this point.
Secretary George? Ms. Aspis?
I don't have anything, thank you.
Oh, okay, thank you. Ms. Aspis?
No, no.
Thank you. Mr. Montoya? Okay. Okay. All right, I have several items. One, I would like to know how far we are with the immersion program at Newcomb Elementary. 2, I'd like to get an update on the land lease for TBA. we were supposed to get the input from Navajo Nation DOJ. It's imperative that we get this done soon because as far as I know, we were number 8 on the list before. So this needs to get done. And 3, I like more information on restorative justice. And because now it's out on the emails coming out from New Mexico PED, so forth. So I like to get more information. I read it, but I would just like more information. And then lastly, for if there could be a consideration for food bank or some sort in the Newcomb Chitty area, because as remembering the New Mexico Business Conference, that the area that has the most need is in that area. So if that has ever been a consideration, and what are we doing about that? What's the need? What's the need? Is there how are those needs being met with COVID, and that still continues to linger, and with the economy and the inflation and everything, especially with school starting on August 8th. That's something that needs to be addressed for our students so they can be successful. Any other reports or possible action? If not,
I have.
Go ahead, Ms. Aspis.
I was kind of reluctant. I wanted to wait until we had the full board here, but seeing that school's going to start soon, and I don't think it's a problem area, but superintendent, I'd like to and I probably need help on this with the board attorney, Chappelle. Jermaine, are you still on?
Yes, ma'am.
So where I'm going with this is how can we prevent, because it's always afterward that I'll hear something or somebody else will say, but prevent from people working on their masters or doctorates during school time and when they should be working. I don't know if that's going to take a board policy or if that's just something that from the superintendent's powers.
Well, you could go either way. You could direct the superintendent to have that policy, or you could make it more formal and put it in an actual board policy. It's your discretion.
Yes, I know with the teachers, they have TESOL and things like that, but they're those are after hours, and with the instructor, but other areas, again, I don't think it's a big problem, but you do hear about it, and I think it's something that it needs to be said. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I guess on in that line, I think Ms. Aspis is right, and maybe revisiting our policies, because I had mentioned last month about looking at the online conduct, the conduct and behaviors, text messages, those kind of things needed to be updated to reflect that how we communicate as staff, as employees, how we communicate with our students and our parents through text messages, and all of that, just encompassing the appropriateness, having just the guidelines, because I don't think there is anything that we have right now that's in place to protect the district.
So we are going to be looking at that, and that's actually a priority. We've been through quite a few trainings with legal teams, and we need to be very careful. We've talked a lot about cell phone usage, especially between students, more than anything, high school students, but any students and adults, and coming up with strict policies, specific policies, especially for any devices and for all these social media platforms. I can't talk about it too much, but there have been issues.
Okay.
Our district and elsewhere, but just right here in our district. So we need to make sure we revisit all those policies, and we will do that.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Welcome.
And plus and deltas, number 8. We'll start with President Wells. Okay. Secretary George.
I'm sorry, can you repeat what we're doing? I'm sorry.
Plus and deltas from the board.
No, we just had a good communication, I think, and good presentations.
Thank you. Ms. Aspis.
I guess the delta would be, I'm really disappointed in that. The idea of having an officer, at OHO, and I've been, I think, a couple of years. I've been patient, and but when you deal with contracts and things like that, you know that's the first thing, and so I was very, very disappointed to hear, and again, it goes back to it's already happened, and the incident already happened, and so there is a need, and but I don't know what else to how we can make that any better. I suggested if we could get with NTUA and see if perhaps we could pull in a trailer, and beside that home, that house, and see if that's something we can do. But there is a need for that, because you have officers that are responding to incidents. I was shot at with traveling on N36, and luckily 4 other people were shot at as well on that road. So the Navajo police was there in the area, and then I've been rear-ended by a drunk driver, and that took about almost an hour before the police showed up. And I was lucky. I think I'm fortunate. But the nearest substation is, from what I understand, is in Crown Point. So if there's ever an incident with the school at OHO, that's, and we do have the sheriff or San Juan County, but they're not out there all day. 24 hour. So, and the same way, you know, I'm just, I guess I should be glad that there's that arrangement made in Newcomb and Noshchitty, because, you know, that those are needed as well. So, thank you.
Ms. Vice President Haskell,
Yes.
I apologize. I was muted and didn't know it. So no, I don't have anything for Plus and Delta.
Appreciate it, President Wells. Mr. Montoya, any plus deltas?
Plus is the fact that the HR department is being very proactive in a business manner to recruit to the district. And I did have an opportunity this morning to welcome a few new employees into the district, and they seemed like they were certainly here for the right reasons to educate our students. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Carlson, for allowing me to do that.
You're welcome.
And then I will end with the plus, I think oh, okay, Miss Aspis.
So, I think a big plus too to you, Carlson, for acknowledging our culture and providing a medicine man. I believe you know what occurred, and so thank you for doing that. And you know, it is important. Thank you.
You're welcome, and I also want to acknowledge Ms. Thompson and her role in making sure that happened quickly.
Yeah, I echo that from what Miss Aspis said. Thank you for that. I think we had just been at the what was that? The Impact Aid, the meeting in Santa Fe, and we had gotten the report that the school district wasn't as responsive previously, years before, and I appreciate your diligence in providing that ceremony. And my pluses besides that is that we cover a lot of good information, a lot of good stuff, and I really don't have any deltas other than my commute from where I work to here is really far, and it takes me a long time to get here, so I apologize for that. And we're at the final item, 9, adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
President Wells?
Yes.
Secretary George?
Yes.
Ms. Aspis? Mr. Montoya?
Yes.
And yes for me, 5 to adjourn the meeting at 9:10 p.m.